Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to dive right into the physics of localized power sovereignty and literally build a decentralized energy solution right on your workbench. If you're an aspiring engineer looking for ways to bypass the traditional grid, you are in the exact right place. We aren't just talking theory here. We're laying out a practical, step-by-step tutorial to combine bleeding-edge physics into a working, physical prototype.
Okay, let's take a look at this quote, because the source material presents a genuinely fascinating premise. It argues that our energy scarcity isn't actually a lack of physical resources, but an institutional information blockage. What does that mean for us as builders? It means the mathematical frameworks and foundational physics to solve energy generation already exist. They're just isolated behind standard consensus and rigid academic walls. We're talking about verified astrophysics and quantum mechanics that, when you combine them, completely rewrite the rules of what's possible on a standard terrestrial workbench.
Here is your maker's blueprint for this explainer. First, we'll clear that information blockage, then move into optimizing quantum spin for gas production. After that, we'll design your benchtop saltwater prototype, scale it for a small engine, and finally close the loop to create a totally decentralized power system.
Section 1. The Engineering Information Blockage. Let's dissolve those artificial boundaries.
To break through these boundaries, we really have to look at the Zeldevich effect. This is a verified astrophysics principle, where kinetic rotation literally amplifies waves. For decades, textbooks have compartmentalized this, keeping wave amplification strictly in the realm of deep space astrophysics. In standard engineering, Lenz's law acts like a massive weight, right? It's a counter-electromotive force that pushes back on you when you try to generate power. But by utilizing rotational superradiance, you fundamentally change the math. You completely bypass standard Lenz's law drag. You stop fighting the rotation and actually start tapping into it, extracting energy directly from the system's angular momentum.
Moving on to Section 2, Quantum Spin and HHO. Time to break the efficiency wall.
Over in chemistry, standard textbooks will tell you that water electrolysis faces this brutal efficiency wall at the anode. They say you need huge amounts of energy just to get a usable volume of gas. But in 2019, a peer-reviewed Nature Energy study proved that this bottleneck isn't about voltage at all. It's actually just an electron spin problem. This is a massive, game-changing paradigm shift for any engineer building an HHO system. The physical truth is that the energy required to extract hydrogen fuel drops dramatically when you manage the quantum mechanics of the water itself.
What's really wild about this comparison is how placing a simple $10 magnet right next to a magnetic anode instantly doubles your hydrogen and oxygen yield. And you don't even need extra voltage. Here's why. To form a stable oxygen molecule, you have to overcome its triplet state, meaning the precursor atoms must have parallel electron spins. Standard electrolysis totally ignores this and just fights against the quantum resistance. Spin-assisted electrolysis, however, uses a magnetic field to physically align those electron spins right on the catalyst surface. It's an elegant, brilliantly simple solution, bridging the gap to viable water-assisted power.
Section 3. Saltwater Homopolar Desktop Design. Let's look at your benchtop prototype.
So the crucial step for us is taking these isolated breakthroughs and applying them into a single highly efficient prototype, specifically a fluid-state homopolar motor. We're going to replace the solid metallic rotor of a traditional generator with a simple cup of water. By treating conductive salt water as a fluid rotor, you create a magneto-hydrodynamic system that completely eliminates complex machining and traditional mechanical friction. Historically, homopolar systems fail because physical carbon brushes create massive friction. But by using an ionic fluid, you easily isolate the core electromagnetic phase relationships, giving you a frictionless, dynamic conductive medium right there on your desk.
All right, when you actually wire this up, you'll place a center electrode and an outer ring right into the salt water. You apply a permanent magnet vertically to trigger a Lorentz force, and that causes the fluid itself to spin. Next, you pulse it with a robust 2N222 transistor. That embeds an oscillating high-frequency wave directly into that rotating fluid. Finally, you just wrap the outside of the glass cup with a secondary copper coil to wirelessly capture inductive energy. You are literally transforming a static cup of water into a dynamic, high-frequency rotational antenna.
You know, just like a radio station doesn't experience physical drag when you turn on your receiver in your car, this high-frequency wireless trap captures energy without reflecting braking torque back onto your spinning fluid. Standard generators bog down under a load because the output current directly fights the rotation. But through high-frequency inductive coupling, your secondary wrapper absorbs energy from the emitted field, not from the physical rotor. It completely decouples the power source from the load.
Section 4, Scaling to Small Engines. Meeting that volumetric demand?
This is where we take a theoretical bench test and settle the debate with actual moving parts. By routing our on-demand HHO gas to run a small internal combustion engine, we can achieve real localized sovereignty. But we have to face a volume reality here. A small 50cc engine running at 3,000 RPM is hungry. It consumes about 75 liters of air and fuel mixture a minute. Since standard DC plates can't produce that massive volume of fuel, your spin-assisted high-frequency design becomes absolutely critical. That 2N222 high-frequency pulse, combined with your magnetic spin alignment, targets the absolute maximum gas volume output per watt, ensuring you meet that engine's demand instantaneously.
Now, to successfully drive that engine without destroying it, your blueprint has to include a few absolutely critical mechanical mitigations. First, because your fluid is physically rotating, you get forced centrifugal bubble shearing. This instantly rips gas bubbles away, preventing the insulating gas blanket that normally ruins standard electrolysis. Second, hydrogen burns incredibly fast. You must heavily retard the ignition timing closer to top dead center, or the spark is going to hit the rising piston and completely lock the engine. And third, a flashback arrestor is mandatory. An HHO mix contains its own oxidizer, and without an arrestor, the flame will travel right down the fuel line and literally detonate your glass cup.
Finally, Section 5, the decentralized power loop, turning waste into wealth.
Once your engine is up and running, you've completely removed the need for massive lithium battery banks or those high-pressure multi-million-dollar storage tanks. You're consuming the gas the millisecond it's born. Looking at this open system cascade, you can see how the high-frequency field simultaneously generates wireless power and liberates dense HHO fuel as a byproduct without causing double mechanical drag. In a traditional generator, extracting two forms of energy results in a double penalty of friction and heat. But here, the secondary receiver wirelessly absorbs the electromagnetic field, while the high-frequency pulsing naturally dissociates pure HHO gas. You're capturing a high-velocity chemical fuel that would otherwise just dissipate into thin air.
And here is an absolutely fascinating byproduct. This setup isn't just an engine, it's the ultimate water purification system. It leaves all the salts and pathogens behind in the basin, while the engine's exhaust condenses into pure, drinkable water. When your high-frequency field splits the water, only pure hydrogen and oxygen escape as gas. All the heavy metals and microplastics, they stay trapped in the saltwater cup. When the engine burns that pure gas, the chemical reaction outputs pure distilled H2O vapor. It completely collapses energy generation, fuel consumption, and water purification into one elegant, self-sustaining ecology. I'll leave you with this provocative thought as we wrap up our explainer. The mathematical truth is sitting right there on your workbench. The concepts of absolute scarcity and unavoidable magnetic drag aren't immutable laws of nature. They are simply engineering constraints that we now know exactly how to bypass using resonance, quantum spin, and rotation. You have the blueprint in your hands. So, how are you going to use it to build your own localized sovereignty?